Hello, everybody. Thank you for being patient. We had some little minor technical difficulties, but here we are. And as you can see, I have a guest tonight. Before we jump into that conversation, just to introduce myself to anybody who might maybe YouTube served you this and you're like, who the hell are these people? My name is Adelia Aborshade. I am Piggy Girl that travels the world. This is my channel. It is a place dedicated to helping Black women primarily live life on their terms, whether that means traveling, whether that means moving abroad. We talk about all of that here. I left the US 8 years ago. And my guest tonight has been to, I don't know how many countries, but probably most of them, I'm going to guess. And so, uh, if you are new and you want to know about travel, you want to know about moving abroad, or how to get your money right to do that, because I am also a financial educator, you have found your corner of the internet. And it is a great idea to go ahead and subscribe to the channel. That way, YouTube can keep bringing you this kind of content. So let's get on with it. Hello to everybody here live in the chat. The Piggy Girl Nation is here tonight. And let me just preface conversation with the bougie nomad, with Miss Bashana. Um, she's here because I don't know how to read. She made a post about moving to, what was it, Morea?
Yes.
Somewhere in Tahiti. And I got so excited. I was like, oh my gosh, I never get to talk to anybody who has moved to the Pacific. And without reading any further, I immediately jumped in her inbox and was like, hey, I saw your post about you moving. Would you like to come on my YouTube channel? And she was like, I moved hotels. I did not move there. And so, yes, I can't read, but but I still wanted to talk to her because Miss Ma'am is quite the nomad. Um, and so I thought hearing her story, hearing how she's negotiating the world out there would be beneficial for a lot of us, particularly those of us who are still kind of on the fence or trying to figure out how to make solo travel work for them. So, welcome, Vashana. I'm so glad you did not blow me off when I was up in your inbox. I am glad you are here today.
Thank you. Thank you. And in your defense, you were not the only person who made that mistake. A lot of people were asking me how I moved there. And I was like, okay, because I had made an earlier post about going. And so instead of updating, I just continued the conversation.
I get it. I get it because on my channel, I talk to a lot of women who have either moved abroad, studied abroad, or bopping around the world. And that is not a part of the world where I see a whole lot of folks relocating to. So I got a little bit ahead of myself. Um, I'm not going to make you introduce yourself, but if I leave something out, please jump in and let the people know.
Okay.
You were in the US Army, you
For
retired, and went into hospitality. Does that sound correct?
yes, I was working as an event manager for Ramsey Solutions for 3.5 years.
Okay. And then so you retired, you went into event planning, and then you re-retired in November of 2022 and decided to become a full-time nomad.
Yes.
Okay. So my first question is, why didn't you, that jump from I was retired, I went back to work, and then I was like, no, this ain't it. I got to be out in the streets. What was going on there?
Okay, so when I retired from the Army in 2016, my original plan was I am going to go back to school, I'm going to get a master's degree, and then I'm going to go get my dream job. Did all that. I was supposed to buy, okay, so I was supposed to buy a duplex. I was going to rent. I was going to rent for a year or two, buy a duplex, live in half the duplex, rent out the other side of the duplex, pay the duplex off, go move into a house, pay the house off, put renters everywhere, and then go off and travel the world and have all this passive income to finance my lifestyle. Uh,
Okay.
but I underestimated the cost of doing all that, and it was going to take too long to do it that way. So I decided that the primary reason I wanted all this rental property was so that I would have somewhere to come back to, but I was not having to pay for housing in the United States while I was not in the United States. And then I figured out that, well, okay, if you don't have a house, if you're not renting, if you don't own, you still don't have to pay for housing in the United States. And I started doing research and realized I could live in an Airbnb for 30 days for less than what I was paying for rent on a 2-bedroom apartment in Franklin, Tennessee. So then it was like, and do I really need roots? Because I thought that I did, but after 2 years of living in the same place, I started to get the, kind of twitching. And yes, so I had to go. So anyway, so yes, so fast forward to 2020, COVID affected me the same way it affected everybody else. Like I was like, I can't go anywhere. I'm just sitting here watching House Hunters International and the Caribbean life, trying to get my travel fix. And then I would never take, I said that after I retired, I would never take a job that did not involve travel. Well, then because of COVID, my job no longer involved travel, but we were working more, and it was preventing me from being able to travel on my own. So at that point, it was like, okay, I got to make some changes. And the change was I'm just going to go back into retirement and just be a nomad.
I resonate with that because that is why I quote unquote retired. Is because I was like, this job is getting in the way of the life that I want to live. And so the job had to go. Now, I think you're probably the first person I've heard arrive at being a nomad or being houseless in this way, reframing it as in kind of stepping away from the whole like American dream, Black excellence. Because when you talk about your plans, you were on your way to building a little mini real estate empire, which that's what we're supposed to be doing and all of that. And you're probably the first person I've heard reframe it and look at it kind of purely from the dollars and cents part of it. Is like, if I'm going to be paying some money regardless of whether I'm traveling or not, what's the difference between staying in an Airbnb and you know having a place that's mine on paper, but then you've got to deal with, okay, if I want to be gone all the time, how am I going to handle that? So I find that really interesting and refreshing. Now, my next question is, I hear you say, okay, so I'll go be a nomad. Why not just move abroad somewhere?
Well, one, I have lived abroad. I've lived in Belgium. I've lived in Italy. And honestly, I don't want to live anywhere. And people keep asking me, well, when are you going to settle down? Like, if you had to pick a place, where would you pick? And I was like, nowhere. I don't want to live anywhere. I am truly enjoying living in a different country every month. Now, I'll admit that somewhere maybe around 2032 and beyond, I would like to have 4 places that I live every year. So like 3 months in each country. And I don't know where those countries are yet. I have no idea where those places would be. So
Again, I think because I am not somebody who can move from one place to the other. I have learned this about myself repeatedly. So for me, it was very much I need to have a place that is mine, where my stuff is. Now, I might not be there all the time, but I need to know that I've got this place. And on this channel, I talk about my life. And so a lot of folks might think like, oh, okay, so that's the way I have to do it. And this is another reason I wanted to talk to you is because you present another example of how this life can be lived. Like I feel like we get so caught up in like the rules of, well, you're supposed to have a job, you're supposed to buy a house, and if you can, buy multiple properties, have all this passive income, but really all the rules are made up. So why not make up your own rules for your life? So if you see yourself bopping between four places 90 days in each one, well, why not? I think that's awesome.
Yeah, I mean it's fun, and I'll admit that my lifestyle is very structured. And people are amazed at how structured it is. And by structured, I mean fully planned out. Because as much as I am a free spirit to the point where I'm like, oh, I can just live anywhere, I still got to know where I'm going to lay my head down.
Okay, y'all. And she is not, you might think, okay, so but she's a nomad. How is she How is this structured? When we were communicating back and forth, trying to figure out a date, she drops her itinerary. She can tell me where she's going to be in September, October, November. She gave me dates and cities all the way through. I'm scrolling now to see uh August 2025, and included her plans for September and October, but just didn't give me dates. So when she says she is structured and she needs to know where she's going to be laying her head, she is not over under speaking that at all. I'm floored. I went through most of today thinking it was Monday. And yesterday I thought it was Tuesday. So the fact that you know where you're going to be, when you're going to be there, and you have that, I am just blown away. And that's one of the things I want to talk about is your process and how you plan things out, because I very much am a sort of fly by the seat of my pants kind of person. So I definitely want to get your perspective on that. Now, I was looking through your Facebook profile and looking at some of your pictures on Instagram. Um, in 2024, you were in Tahiti, you were in Bali, and I know I'm not going to get everything. You were in Tahiti, you were in Bali, you were in Ireland, staying at a castle, doing hawk stuff, hawkery. I know falconry. I don't know what you do with hawks. You were in Japan. You were in South Korea. Any place else this year? Because I think I probably missed some.
Okay, so correction, I was not in Bali in 2024.
Okay.
I'm gonna be in Bali in 2025 though. But no, so let's see. Where I think you might have mistaken Mexico for Bali. Because I was in
Okay.
Mexico for 3 weeks in July. So yeah, so I started my international journey in October of 2023. And so in October I did Scandinavia. In November I did the Baltics. December was Poland. January was Korea. February was Japan. March was England and Wales. April was Ireland, and May was Scotland. And yeah, Ireland, I think was probably my favorite month because that was like the bucket list month. That was the since 2014. This is what I have wanted to do: is rent a car and drive around Ireland and only stay at bed and breakfasts. And then the castle that was a no brainer because wait, there's a castle I can stay in. And so one of the activities that they had at the castle was they still call it falconry, even though it was a hawk. And
Okay.
I'm going to tell you, I almost didn't do it because I was looking at the price, and I almost didn't do it. And I finally just had to tell myself, I mean, you got it, just go do it. And I'm so glad I did, because it was just one of those experiences that you don't know you need that in your life until you have it. And I'm like, I want to do it again.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Now, when you kind of figured out that like you could, instead of waiting and building your real estate empire to fund your travels, that you could basically just rent on the road via Airbnb. Did you have a property that you needed to sell or a lease you needed to break?
No, so I owned a house. I bought a house after the financial crisis in '08. So I actually built a house in 2009, while I was still in the military. And then I decided when I retired from the military that I did not want to have to work. And with that mortgage, and also I didn't want to live in North Carolina where the house was. I wanted to live in Tennessee where the dream job was. And I did not want to be an unemployed long distance landlord. And so with that house and with that mortgage, I needed, to be able, I needed to work. Because if something, if I didn't have a tenant, also my rent did not cover my mortgage because I had gotten a 15-year mortgage. So the rent didn't cover it. So basically, I sold that house in 2015 before I retired. And when I moved to Tennessee, I moved as a renter because I wanted to keep my options open.
That makes sense. Again, I'm glad to hear you say that because we often think like it has to go this particular way. And I feel like there's been a stigma about renting. And I honestly, I will probably rent until I am not here anymore. I just don't see me owning property ever again. Um, okay. So what do you do when you're not traveling? Because you mentioned that like you didn't want to have to maintain two places, or are you always traveling?
As a nomad, you're always traveling. As a nomad, it's like you're all, because you don't have stability as a nomad. So you are always, and you're in a constant state of travel. So basically, and that's why my schedule is booked so far in advance, because like I said, I need to know where I'm going to lay my head down every night. So like even before I went international, I still had a dog. I had a senior dog, and I couldn't leave the country until after she had passed. So I was doing house sits, and people would try to book me last minute for a house sit. And I had to constantly tell people, look, I am booked for house sits 6 months out. Like, I'm not booking house sits a week before I need a house sit. I'm like, I don't have a home. I need to know where I'm going to lay my head every single night. So I was on Trusted House Sitters, and I would just sit down, and just book. And I can book them because it's Trusted House Sitter. I'm only booking them long term. Like if your house sit is shorter than a week, I'm probably not even going to apply to that. So I'm applying for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and then in between, because I was doing that, all of my friends all of a sudden decided, oh, well, can you come watch my dogs? So I was in high demand, and then like after I house sat for somebody one time, they would ask me to come back again. And so yeah, so as far as I know, as far as I'm concerned, there's always going to be there's always going to be a calendar that is booked up with where I'm going to be. I'm never going to be out there willy nilly. I thought I could. I thought that I could. I read, I think her name is Rita Goldman. I did her audiobook, Tales of a Female Nomad, and listening to her story. Now, granted, I think she was doing this back in the 70s or 80s when life was a whole lot different. But listening to her story and how she left her schedule completely open, and by doing that, she was open to a whole lot of different opportunities. And so I imagine myself doing that, but that's just not who I am. And I would never be comfortable flying by the seat of my pants in that manner. So, like, say for instance, in December last year, I met this lady on, I think it was Facebook, and she invited me to Italy to her house for a Christmas party. But I was in Poland. So I'm like planned for Poland. And I was like, no, I'm gonna be in Poland. So it wasn't like I could jump and take that opportunity. However, she she extended the offer again this year. So this year, while I'll be in Turkey in December, but I'm gonna pop over to Italy for Christmas and spend Christmas hanging out at her house.
Because I'm thinking you could have popped over. Poland is not that far.
It's not, but I really wanted to at Christmas.
Well, yeah, I get it. I get it. Um, I think, I hope what somebody picks up from what you've shared so far is I know that there is a segment of the community that wants to travel, that they are not interested in settling down in one place in the way that I have. And they're trying to figure out, well, again, the financial piece, I don't want to maintain a property, a home, or an apartment back in another country that I'm hardly going to be there. But also, I don't want to look up and then I have no place to stay. And so, booking house sits 6 months in advance, like that. That's how you are a full-time house sitter or what have you. That's how you make sure. Now, I don't know if y'all picked up on this. She said she was house sitting what while her senior dog was still alive. Y'all realize she was taking the dog with her. So if you're somebody who's like, I'd love to house sit, but I have this dog, I have this cat. It is still possible, much in the same way that like if you got a husband or a kid that you want to house sit, you can do it with them. It's just about finding people for whom that's not going to be a problem.
Hmm? Yeah, because I got turned down for quite a few house sits because of my dog, but I also got accepted to even more house sits because of my dog. Because most people really love the fact that I was traveling with her, and when they turned me down, it wasn't really because of her. It was more so because their dogs weren't properly socialized, or their dog, like this lady had cats, and she was like, "My cats barely tolerate the dog. I can't bring another dog into the mix." And I totally understand that. So
That's awesome. And so you were doing that in the US. So you would say that you don't really have a home base, quote unquote.
I mean, technically, yes, I have three home bases. So when I started this whole journey, I was living in Nashville, and so that's where all my doctors are, and that's where my most recent set of friends, that's where they live, because that's where I lived for 4.5 years. So all my doctors are there. So every year I go back there for about 3 weeks, and I knock out all my doctor appointments. And then I'm from Virginia Beach. That's where my mom is. That's where my both my brothers are. That's where my family is. So I have a storage unit with all the stuff that I did not get rid of is in that storage unit in Virginia Beach. And then right now I'm in Atlanta because when I fly in and out of Atlanta and I have friends here. So basically my car lives here when I'm in another part of the world.
Okay. Okay. And so that's working for you so far because you've been at this what since 2022. You went international uh last fall, and
Mhm.
that setup is working for you.
Yes, yeah, I had been coming home. Well, so I was making it. So I don't want to spend more than 90 days a year in the US. Basically, that's the key. No more than 90 days a year. And I had been coming home and using June, July, and August as my opportunity to kind of reset, place luggage, replace items that I've packed and things like that. But then next year, I'm going to switch my schedule because I decided I want for Thanksgiving from now on. So I'll be home September, October, and November, and then leave out again in December in the future. But yeah, so I come home and I kind of like try to stockpile all my medications because I still haven't figured out medication on the road.
Okay. Okay. Because here in Mexico, a lot of what people would need a prescription for in the US, you can typically get over the counter. And I had always assumed Europe was a little bit more like that, less like the US. Um, there was something I was just about to ask you, and it's gone from my brain right now. Um, I'm asking my questions now. If y'all got questions, drop those in the chat and we will get to them. I know that initially, when you were doing your travel, so let's say when you started in, what was it, November 2023, when you
Well,
first,
November 2022.
when, okay, 2022, but for that, for about a year, you were still domestic, right?
Yes.
Okay. And so as you moved internet, well, let me rephrase this question. How long do you typically stay in a place?
That's a good question. So typically, last year, last year I was moving a lot. So like in Scandinavia, because I was trying to hit up Copenhagen, Oslo, Stockholm, and Helsinki all in that 1 month. I pretty much was only in every place like maybe 7 nights. And sometimes it was 6 nights because I took the overnight ferry to get to the next place. Because I try to wake up, no, or I try to either wake up or go to sleep the first day of the month in the new country. So then in November, because I wanted to hit up all of the Baltics, and honestly, I could not see myself in any one of those countries for 30 days. So I split it up 10 days each between Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania. Although I would go back to Lithuania and spend more time, I did really enjoy Lithuania. And then Poland, I stayed, but I did 2 weeks in Warsaw and 2 weeks in Krakow. But then while I was in Warsaw, I did like an overnight trip to Gdansk. And while I was in Krakow, I did an overnight trip to Wrocław. But I did that because I wanted to hit up all the best Christmas markets.
Okay,
Yeah.
awesome. Now you said you wanted to hit all the Christmas markets. Did you buy things? Because like you don't have a house.
I bought food. And I did buy a scarf. I did buy a scarf, and that scarf is amazing. Like I was using my little pashminas that I got in Afghanistan. And while they're cute, they're not very warm. So I got what I call my 30-degree and below scarf. And I used that in Poland, and I used it in Korea, and it was wonderful. But I had to contemplate, do I have room for this scarf in my luggage, or do I have to leave a scarf behind since I bought one? Because that is my rule, is if you buy something new, something old has to stay behind.
Just spoken like a good minimalist.
Oh, I'm not a minimalist by any stretch of the imagination. I just don't have room.
It sounds like you are out of necessity more so than like you feel it in your heart, but it's okay. It's okay. All right. Several people have asked, how do you decide where to travel? So how does a place make the cut, make the list?
That's a good question. So basically, this dream life I'm living right now, it started in 2015 because I lived in Belgium for 18 months and then I lived in Italy for 18 months. And I tried to stay longer in Italy, but they wouldn't let me, so I had to come home. And I was like, but there's places I haven't been to yet. And so I just created a list of all the places that I wanted to go because I figured I'm going to work for 5 years and do a 1 year sabbatical. And I'm going to do 12 months, 12 countries. And so I created a list with those 12 countries, and then at 12, the 12 months, excuse me, the 12 months became 15 months and 30 countries. So I just kept adding. So basically what I would do while I was at my job And I have a very task oriented job. So once my task was completed, I would be sitting around bored most of the time. So I would open up the map and I would just look at the map. And I'm looking at basically the world. And I'm like, I wouldn't mind going there. I wouldn't mind going there. And I'm constantly creating lists. So like I will show people my Facebook, I mean my phone, the notes in my phone, and I show them all the lists that I've created. And so, and what I'm doing is when I'm creating the list, I'm looking at the map and I'm looking at, okay, this is, if I go in this direction, this is the least amount of travel. So like if I go, like say when I went to Korea, well, Japan was just, that made sense. I didn't even have to fly to Japan from Korea. I could just take a ferry, and then the same with like, well, granted, I did fly between the UK countries, even though I could have taken trains, except for Wales. I did take a train to Wales. But so that's basically what I was looking at. I was looking at the path of travel between different countries. Because like say for instance, from Copenhagen to Oslo, I took an overnight ferry. And then from Oslo to Sweden, I took a train. But then from when I got to the Baltics, between all three of the Baltic countries plus Poland, I took a bus. So I'm like looking at, is it going to be easy to travel around this region? So, and that's basically what I'm focusing on now is I'm focusing on regions. So next year it'll be Southeast Asia. So I'm just going to hit up all the countries that, I can basically hop over throughout Southeast Asia.
Is there any place that you're like, no, that's all right. I don't need to see that.
There's a lot of places. I mean, I don't need to see Russia. I don't need to see North Korea. Um, those are probably the only two places I'm like, I don't need to see that. But then there's other places that I'm probably like, oh no, I take it back. I don't need to see Dubai. Like everybody wants to go to Dubai, but me. And people don't understand why I don't want to go
I
to
don't
Dubai.
either.
Yeah, I'm like, well, what are we doing in Dubai? I'm like, shopping? I don't shop. I'm not a shopper. So what else are we going to do in Dubai? And also, I always say my answer is I spend enough time in the Middle East.
Um, in so I was supposed to spend last Christmas in Dubai, and it's a place that I kind of like you. I'm like, what am I gonna do? The most I could come up with, I wanted some camel's milk chocolate, but I'm pretty sure I could get that in another country that I don't have to go to Dubai to get it. So,
Yeah.
um,
I've got countries I don't necessarily need to go back to. And England is the one that I'm just like, I'm done with England. And
huh.
and it's funny, I think that maybe I have outgrown England. And I think it's probably because when I lived in Belgium, I was in England on a regular basis. Belgium is a French speaking country, and I would get so frustrated at times that I just needed to get to London. And London was my happy place.
You sound like my roommate. She lived in Belgium for almost 3 years, and she was like, and she does not like French, the language.
Mhm.
So she was always trying to find somewhere else to be and not be.
Yeah, it was relaxing. I mean, and I love the French language. I'm not very good at it, but I do love that language. Like that's the language I went to French camp when I was 10. And that was the language that I chose to do in high school. And when I was in Afghanistan, I got someone to tutor me in French, but I'm just not very good at it. And so it was just more relaxing to just finally go to England and just be able to just understand everybody around me, and then like also I would gravitate to the Canadians. Like I love Canadians, and I don't care where I go in the world, I'm gonna find the Canadian. I don't know how that works, but the Canadians, like in Belgium, they felt my pain. Like them being from North America, we could like commiserate because they understood what I was going through.
Yeah. Now, your nom de plume, your handle online is the bougie nomad.
Yes.
Let's talk about that a little bit. How bougie are you?
I mean, we already discussed I stayed in a castle.
True,
Uh,
true.
everybody, okay. So everybody's got all these ideas for what I should do. Oh, you should go stay in a hostel. Hostels are so cool. I'm sorry, bougie nomad. Oh, you should go get an RV. An RV is cool. I'm sorry, bougie nomad. I like hotels. I like hotels. I mean, my trips to my trips to Oslo and to Helsinki were on overnight ferries, not because it was cheaper to do it that way. It was just like a fantastic experience. And when I tell you that I'm on these ferries doing wine tastings, I did the one to Helsinki. I did a 5 course French dinner complete with wine pairings for each course. When I go to France in November, I'm staying in a chateau. Like
Of course.
when I went to Tahiti, I stayed in an over the water bungalow. Like I enjoy the finer things in life, but also I don't need to go so basic with this lifestyle that I have to reduce myself to sharing a room with a bunch of people I don't know and being worried about whether or not my things are going to be taken and whether or not they're properly secured. I have done that for 20 years in the army. I'm good.
When you put it like that, because I definitely pre 2020, I was somebody who would be in a hostel. Um, because again, for me, I was a public school teacher for 19 years, so I ain't had no money. I just wanted to get there. And I was like, if this is what I gotta do to get there, that's fine. But I've never really thought about it the way that you just framed it. And yeah, saying it like that makes it sound not great. Um, but yeah, you bougie, you bougie, and we love it. We are here for it.
Yes, my brother
I
told my
guess.
nephew that your auntie is a bougie homeless person.
Well, that does kind of help us segue into, because I'm sure multiple people are probably wondering this, like, how do you manage your budget? Um, Given that you love the finer things in life and you are traveling full time.
Okay, so I am a I'm an extreme saver. So when I was working, I saved a lot. I saved a lot of money. Um, but also I have a pension, so I'm living off of my pension. And what I did was when I quit my job the second time, I just took a little bit of my savings and I made it kind of like an overflow for my budget. So there are months that I do go over budget, because like I have my budget. Now, my goal is always to spend no more than 25% of my income on lodging. If sometimes I have to go over, in those months that I have to go over, like say for instance England, that month I went massively over, but I have a cushion that I can dip into. But then I have less expensive months. Like say for instance, the month that I was in Scotland, I was under budget. The month I was in Poland, the month uh, so excuse me, Scandinavia, I was over budget. Then the but then the Baltics,
I, I went uh I went what in 2022, and yeah, so no, I get it.
yeah. So the months that I'm over budget, I'm using my cushion. But then the months that I'm under budget, because there are a lot of months where I'm under budget, I'm building that cushion back up, because I'm still a prodigious saver, even out here living this lifestyle. And then, like, say for instance, when I went to Korea, for the first 2 weeks that I was in Korea, I stayed with a friend. When I went to Japan, for the first 2 weeks that I was in Japan, I stayed with a friend. So yeah, so basically what I do is the baseline is 25% of the budget goes towards lodging. And so what I'm doing is I'm searching between Airbnbs and hotels to figure out, okay, this is my budget is what, roughly $52 a night. And so I'm trying to stay between that. Now, say for instance, when I was in Warsaw, I was under budget on my on those 2 weeks. Now, when I went to Krakow, I was over budget. But because it was over and under and it was the same month, it still balanced out and I still managed to stay on budget with I managed to stay on budget with my housing budget. But food, Airbnbs are easier because you can just go buy yogurt, fruit, and coffee, and you don't have to eat out for breakfast. But then hotels are good too. So, like, say for instance, those bed and breakfasts that I stayed in in the UK, they feed you so much food for breakfast. I wasn't even eating again until like 3 or 4 o'clock at night, and then that was dinner. So now I'm only eating one meal a day. And the other thing is like transportation because I'm taking buses, because I'm taking trains, I'm not really spending that much on transportation between some of these countries. So when I do that, I'm saving money, or because if I was home, I'd be paying for gas, I'd be paying for car insurance, I'd be paying for all these things that I don't have to pay for because I'm overseas. So getting rid of my house, and because I haven't had debt since 2007. So not having any of those things holding me back kind of like opens up my budget for me to be able to do a lot of the things that I do.
And how often are you monitoring this? Is this something like at the end of the day, you're seeing how, okay, this is what I spent, this was the goal, so you
Yeah.
can adjust?
So at the beginning of the month, I do my budget, or actually not the beginning of the month, the end of the month. At the end of the month, I do my budget for the following month. And so I know where I am financially before I even go into the month, and I keep a tally. And at the end of every day, I sit down and I reconcile my finances at the end of every day, so I can see what I'm doing. So, like, say for instance, I know that, okay, I'm trying to save, like, I have X amount of money, but I don't want to spend X amount this month. I want to be able to save. So if I'm only going to spend this amount and I've got 20 days, this is how much I have per day that I can spend to stay on track. And then a lot of times I'll get cash. And then that way I know exactly what I'm spending every day.
I have definitely leaned more into cash because when I'm charging things on plastic, I just lose all sense, all feeling of how much something is, because it doesn't exist to me if I'm just swiping a card. So I
Yeah, there's
get
no
that.
pain factor with plastic. Cash gives you a pain factor.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, so we talked about budget, we talked about your bouginess, and we talked about like your preferred accommodations. You're not house sitting internationally now,
No,
correct?
no.
Okay.
I keep my profile open just because if I need to fall back on that, I can. But no, I'm not house sitting right now.
Okay. Now, one of the things, because we talk about solo travel a lot on this channel, I have a solo travel Facebook group that I'm just now realizing is not linked in the description of this video. So I'll have to do that. If you're watching this from the future, the link will be in the description. And some of the questions and concerns that always seem to come up when we talk about solo travel. People talk about, well, what if I'm lonely? What if I'm bored? Is that a problem you've faced?
It's not a problem for me, and that is the joy of being an extrovert. I'm only ever alone when I want to be, and then sometimes I'm still not. And I'm one of those people, like I'm one of those people, you are almost never gonna see me without a smile on my face. And I'm starting to recognize that that draws people to me because people will talk to me in countries where people don't talk to people, like Helsinki. I was already warned before Finland that okay, they're not going to talk to you. You know, they're very reserved there, and if you speak to them, they're friendly, but they're very reserved. People spoke to me. I remember Oslo. I was riding the tram and I was just gonna I was gonna do a Rick Steves guide. So basically, it's like you get on the tram and you read his book, and he tells you what you're looking at as you're riding around on the tram. And this young man sitting across from me saw me reading the book, started talking to me. You know, we done jumped off the train, but went to go get hot cocoa, parked together. You know? And I'm like, but this is boring. They say people speak to you.
I can, as somebody who does not smile, I can tell you that makes you look unapproachable and nobody talks to me just the way I like it. So, all right. So you're not bored, you're not lonely. What about safety?
I okay. Safety to me, the world is not as dangerous as people like to think that it is. Like, stop watching the news, stop watching Fox, watching CNN. We don't live in a dangerous world. We might live in some dangerous places, but like, I don't know. I went to Israel in 2019 and everyone was so concerned about my safety. And my response was, but you weren't concerned about my safety. So, and then like I went to Mexico for 3 weeks. I could not get anybody to go with me to Mexico. And I'm like, well, if I wanted to just listen to Fox and listen to CNN, see, and the thing is, and I listened to this on a podcast and it made so much sense. The guy said that if something bad happens to you, to someone, say for instance, someone is shot and killed in Chicago, then that person was a bad actor. Nobody says Chicago is the worst place in the world. Don't ever go to Chicago. But if somebody is shot and killed in Mexico, they want to blame it on the whole doggone country. Oh, Mexico is dangerous. Don't go to Mexico. You know? And I would rather, I take my cues from the people who have been there and the people who live there. That's who I take my cues from. So if someone has Morocco, I heard enough people say that they did not feel safe as a woman traveling solo around Morocco for me to be like, okay, maybe when I go to Morocco, I need to find somebody to go with me. Or maybe I need to find a male guide that I can hang out with while I'm there. You know what I'm saying? So, but these are people who have been there and they're telling me how they felt in those countries. But these are also solo travelers who didn't feel that way in other countries. So I'm going to take them a little more serious than I would take someone who's never been there trying to tell me that a place isn't. But I also have a lot of common sense, you know, and I recognize where I am. So the way that I moved in London, the same way I was moving around. Same country, different, but I recognize I can walk down a dark alley in York and I can be just fine, but I'm not walking down a dark alley in London. So there's a lot of common sense that goes into it.
Okay. And we have a few questions from the folks in the chat. Were there any places, because you mentioned that you've yet to find a place that's going to make like your final four. Are there any places that you have just really loved, really enjoyed?
Ireland. Ireland, and because people keep asking this question and I have to come up with an answer, it's Ireland. And Ireland really surprised me because I saw water that made me think I was in the Caribbean. And I didn't know that I was going to see that. The people, I love Irish people. They are so funny. They are so funny. They are so friendly. Um, and they, yes. So I would say Ireland. One, the country is beautiful. Like just driving around and seeing all the cliffs and the greenery. And I love the little the the stone houses that are basically like rooms from the potato famine era, but they don't get rid of them. They just, they're just going to fall apart in place. But because they're stone, it becomes part of the landscape. And it just, I don't know, just there's something mesmerizing about it. I could not take enough pictures of them. I couldn't take enough pictures of sheep. That's weird. I couldn't understand why I had to keep taking pictures of sheep. I haven't asked myself, how many more pictures of sheep are you going to take? But it was just, they're just there. They're everywhere. And then their history. I love Irish history. Like the the way that the Irish have suffered through history is a lot like how Black people have suffered through history. You know what I'm saying? And to me, their fighting spirit, like they don't call them a fighting Irish for no reason. And those jokers will claim any and everybody and tell you everybody got Irish blood in them. They had a picture of no, not a picture. They had a mural of Che Guevara. And they said Irish blood runs through Che Guevara because his great grandfather was Irish. And I'm like, they're going to make everybody Irish. And then I found out when I got to Scotland that my last name is Irish. So maybe that's where it comes from. Who knows?
Very much. I did I forget what the museum is called. It's there in Dublin, where it kind of goes through the history and it talks about like all of the places the Irish went. And when you say that they have a history very similar to ours in a lot of ways that they do, which I think I hear a lot of Black folks say, like, Ireland, that could be a place for them because I think, you know, they know what it's like to be second class citizens.
Oh, yeah.
Another question we had, is there a country where you were like, the food here, this is it?
Japan.
Huh.
Look, I don't know why I'm obsessed with ramen the way that I am, but I probably was eating ramen every other day. Like, and I gave myself permission. I was like, I don't care if you eat ramen every single meal, you're enjoying it. And then there's so many, because they're so different. Everywhere that you go, their ramen is going to be different. And I had the best ramen in Nagasaki, and theirs was based on Chinese culture. I can't even explain how it's different. All I know is I was trying to find it in other places that I went. If I saw it on the menu somewhere else, I was going to get it, because it just had a lot of that particular ramen in Nagasaki had Chinese influence, and it was just different from all the other ones. And then there were a couple of more that were like that that I found in Osaka that were really good. I went to Kobe, and of course I had the Kobe beef. That was really good. Yeah, the only time I did not enjoy my food in Japan was when I was eating European food. And it was funny because I was hanging out with this girl from French Guyana. She lives in Lyon. And she said, there is nothing in the world that could convince me to eat European food in Japan. And I was like, I was just tired of eating the same cuisine. I'm one of those people that I do not eat the same cuisine on a regular basis. And I was just eating Japanese food. That's all I ate. And I was there for a month and I needed something different. So I figured I'd try pizza or I'd try pasta. And it was not the move. It was,
No,
so yeah.
no. The last time I went to Thailand, I was like, I'm going to eat pad thai every day. And I had they talk about how there is not a true recipe for pad thai, that it's different. And I will tell you that is very true. I have one with cashews, one with peanuts. The sauce was different, but like you said, I gave myself permission. If that's what I want to eat, I'm gonna eat it every day, and that is exactly what I did.
I'm going to tell you what
Um,
insulting though is being in Japan, paying $5 for the most amazing bowl of ramen, and coming back to these United States and paying $17 for some mediocre ramen.
yeah, yeah. Or here there was I love a noodle, and there was a place here that did, I don't know if it was supposed to be Japanese or Chinese noodles, but like it's not something Mexicans do very well. And I moved back here after living in China, and there used to be a little Muslim noodle shop down the street from my house. So I had a craving and we went. The noodles were delicious, but I paid $1.30 in China. And here it was like $15 for a bowl of noodles. But I mean, they were delicious, but also they were $15.
Yeah. Yeah.
What kind of luggage do you travel with?
Okay, so I have a Ricardo Beverly Hills roller bag carry-on, and I have the Osprey Fairview 55 liter backpack day pack combo. And then I have my CPAP. So I'm walking around with my backpack, with my backpack on the back, and then I've got my day pack on the front, and then I got my roller bag, and I've got my CPAP attached to the roller bag. And it looks like a lot because it is. And the backpack on my bag really looks like a lot because it's as full as it can go. And then I've got my coat and my blanket tied to the outside of the backpack. So yes, it is a sight to behold, to see me coming. Um, yeah. And I actually busted through that Ricardo bag. It did make it home. It did make it home. And then I contacted Ricardo, and I mean, they came through with the replacement. It was still under warranty. They said that they couldn't fix it. So they just sent me a new bag. So I
All
get to
right.
go back out this year with a brand new bag.
Um, do you use credit card points or rewards?
So I went before I started traveling because I haven't had a credit card since 2008. But before I started this, I decided that maybe oh, you know what? I went and got a credit card because I knew I was going to rent a car, and I didn't want to have to buy insurance. And a lot of the credit cards, you can get insurance through the credit card. So because I hadn't had a credit card since 2008, nobody really wanted to give me one. I went to my credit union to get it. And so I'm not really savvy with the points. But I will say that what I started doing was I started buying all my plane tickets, and anytime I travel, anything connected to transportation, I purchase it with that credit card. And so by doing that, I am accumulating points. And last month or last week, I went to Austin for my nephew's wedding, and I was able to use those points to pay for the hotel that I stayed at. But
Okay.
I tried to get a Chase Sapphire. I was going to get the preferred, work my way up to the reserve, and they just kept turning me down because of my address. They couldn't get with my I have a digital mailbox, and they kept telling me someone was fraudulently trying to open an account on my behalf. Which, okay,
Mhm.
good, but no, it's really me. And I kept going inside the bank trying to get it fixed and trying to get it resolved. I even applied in the bank in person, and they still kept telling me that it wasn't me who was applying. And I finally just gave up and said, you know what? You keep your card and your $500 fee. So I am back to just using my credit union, and it's going to be what it's going to be. I might be wasting money, but it is what it is.
Well, I wouldn't say wasting money because if I feel, and this may be an unpopular opinion, that if you're going to if you're going to play the game, it requires a certain amount of energy and strategy. And I would personally rather use my energy elsewhere.
That is true.
Um, you mentioned renting a car, and if there's somebody here and they feel similarly about like having a credit card or whatever, something to keep in mind. I know in the US, I assume in other places as well, that they often will not let you rent a car with a debit card, that you need to have a credit card, because they want to know that if they slap you with a $500 charge, they're actually going to get the money as opposed to it being tied to your bank account.
Well, I will say this. Like I said, I have not had a credit card since 2008. I rent cars all the time. The only reason, as a matter of fact, when I lived in Europe, I was renting cars without a credit card. So it can be done
Okay.
because I mean, I was doing it on a regular basis. Um, but
Okay.
but the thing is, the difference overseas is they my so in the US, my car insurance, USAA, will cover me in a rental car. They will not cover me in a rental car overseas. And so that's why I needed the rental insurance. And because it comes attached to the credit card, and because I figured the way it probably would be easier to just have a credit card, you know what I'm saying? So that's why I got it. But I rented the car in Ireland, and because my debit card, or excuse me, it's not my debit, my credit card would not cover me for car rental in Ireland. So I still ended up paying all the money I was trying to save.
Yeah. I just discovered what I'm hoping is a hack. I needed to go back to Houston to drop my granddaughter off, and I needed to rent a car. And by accident, I ended up pulling up the Mexican or the international version of the website. And so it was assuming I was Mexican. And so all of the cars that they were showing me, the prices included insurance.
Oh,
There was even one that I just rented the other week, um, included, I didn't have to put any gas and it cost me like $10 extra
oh
that I could
wow.
leave it on E. And so I was like, oh, so maybe this is what I need to make sure I do is book cars not through the American site. Because I guess they're figuring if you're an international traveler, you know, I don't know. All right, we have one more question. Is it difficult dealing with the VA being international?
I'm gonna say yes, and I don't know. No, I'm gonna say no, and I don't know. The reason why I'm gonna say no is because before I started this, they have the foreign medical program, and I signed up for the foreign medical program. So I have a letter that basically says that I can be treated anywhere outside of the country, and they'll reimburse me. However, it has to be for what I'm covered for in my disabilities. So let's say, for instance, um, we'll say I have frozen shoulder and low shoulder. So I have matter of fact, my shoulder is acting up now. So I have shoulder issues. But so if I have to go to a doctor in another country because of my shoulder, then they'll cover me. Whereas, I don't know, if I stub my toe, there's nothing wrong with my toe in my records, so they won't cover me for that. But it's still, I'm going to be reimbursed for it. I'll have to pay for it up front and be reimbursed. Now, I'm saying I don't know because I have not used it.
Okay. Okay. So, are you just carrying a travel medical policy then?
So I have a bunch of different policies. So I have the VA. So like I said, if I go to the doctor, like if something that I'm rated for, if something that I'm rated for in my disabilities bothers me while I'm out of the country, I can be seen for that. But then I also have TRICARE Select, which covers me overseas. So like say for instance, I needed a medical procedure while I was in Korea. So I was able to go into my app and find doctors in Korea who take TRICARE. Now, mind you, again, I have to pay up front and wait to be reimbursed. But I can be seen by any doctor, or not any doctor, but I can be seen through the TRICARE network in other countries and just get reimbursed for it. But I also have I have an annual travel insurance policy as well. And this policy is with Travel Insured. It cost me like $94 a year. And so what I did when I got that program, when I got that insurance, is I was looking at several different travel insurance policies, and they were all seeming really expensive, which was another reason I wanted the credit card, so that I didn't need as much coverage from these travel insurance policies. But then I found Travel Insured, and I went down the list of what I needed coverage for and what I didn't need coverage for. And this policy just lined up perfectly with what I need. It's giving me a bunch of stuff I don't necessarily need, but I'm glad I have it. You know what I'm saying?
Okay. And with that policy, is there a limit to the number of trips per year they will cover, or how a requirement for how much time you would have to be back in the US?
No, and that's why I went with them, because I think I was looking at World Nomads or something like that, and it just didn't make any sense. Like, I was like, this is not for nomads. Like, every trip has to start in the US. Like, that's not a World Nomad if you have to start every trip in the US. And it was very expensive. It was like more than $500 for a 6-month policy. So yeah, so basically I used their policy as my gauge for, okay, this is what they have, this is what insurance policies cover, this is what I don't need, and this is what I do need. So yeah, so I mean, I ended up getting a supplemental. So I was saying that I rented the car in Ireland, and my credit card would not cover me so my credit card will not cover me for rental insurance in Ireland, the Republic of Ireland, Jamaica, or Israel.
Hmm.
Yeah, right. So I use my supplemental policy for my travel insurance. So it's not something that I pay for annually, but if I need it, I can add it to the policy. And so that's what I ended up doing for April, was adding to the policy. I think it cost me like $206 to add it.
Okay, all right. So, what is there a particular place for your travels, as you get back out on the road, that you are particularly excited about seeing?
I am really excited about going. Okay, let me start with Croatia, because I haven't been to Croatia since my 40th birthday in 2014, and I am so excited to be going back to Croatia. I served in Bosnia in 97, 98, and I'm excited to go back and see what Bosnia looks like now. Um, I'm excited about France because I'm renting a car and I'm going to all the D-Day sites. Plus, I'm going to all the different wine regions, and I'm just going to drink wine around France. So I'm really excited about that. A matter of fact, I have the wine Bible, and I started reading the wine Bible in 2021. And I just bought it on, I just bought the Kindle version because I can't take that big old book with me. So I just bought the Kindle version so I can make sure that I'm hitting up all the right places, and I know what I'm looking for in each of the regions. So it's going to be like a little fun research game for me for the month. And then I'm excited about getting back to Southeast Asia. Like, I used to go to Vietnam, Laos, and Thailand on a regular basis between 2000 and 2003. And when I tell you youth is wasted on the young, I was like, I don't understand why anybody would want to come to these countries. And I mean, I'm coming here because I'm working and I'm getting paid to be here, but like, you on your honeymoon. Ew. And I'm like, and now that I'm older and more mature, now I'm like, you know what? I did not appreciate it for what it was back in those days. So I'm really excited to go back and you know, all those times that I went to Thailand, I never ate Thai food in Thailand.
Oh,
And
wow.
yeah, so I'm excited about that. Bali is one of those places that I just never wanted to go to Bali. And now that I want to go to Bali, I really want to go to Bali. And so I'm so excited about going to Bali, the Philippines, um, Cambodia, because I never got to go to Cambodia when I was going to Vietnam and Laos. So I'm excited about going to Cambodia. I'm just excited about going to that region of the world.
Is there any place on your list that, other than, let's say, Cambodia, that you hadn't already been to?
So I haven't been to Malaysia, Singapore, the Philippines, Hong Kong, Taiwan. Yeah. Oh, Turkey. I haven't.
So I was going to say, it sounds like that's going to get taken care of next year.
Yes. 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 So I'm going to all of those next year. Again, like I said, I just opened up the map. And actually, Malaysia, I had no plans to go to Malaysia. And when I was in Korea, I was doing a tour of one of the castles, not a castle, it was I can't even remember what it was. It's similar to the castle, but it wasn't a castle. It's whatever that equivalent would be in Korea. Anyway, I was doing a tour, and I this mother daughter, and they were from Malaysia, and I was telling them about my travels, and I was saying I was going to go to Singapore next year, and they were like, you know, I had never even thought about Malaysia. Didn't realize Malaysia and Singapore are on the same rock. And they were like, and Malaysia is so much less, so much cheaper than going to Singapore. And
It
so now,
is.
yeah, so now I'm only going to go to Singapore for 7 days, but I'm going to spend the other 23 days in Malaysia.
Singapore technically was part of Malaysia, and then the overseas Chinese, when it was time to get independence, they were like, "No, we're going to do something different here." I wonder, I will be curious and I will be following you to see if you make the whole 7 days in Singapore. I just one of my IG friends was just posting about it, and I replied to him. I was like, Singapore is like a weekend at best. And he was
Ah,
like, yeah, that's what everybody keeps telling me. So I'll be interested to see if you do the whole 7 days. Even Janella, she said 7 days is a long time.
oh,
The
wow.
country is this big.
So I haven't booked it yet. I have not booked Singapore yet. And, I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to do the airport because I need to be in Changi for about 12 hours. Changi is a destination within itself.
It
And
is.
I flew into Changi last year, or when I went to Japan. I was flying from Japan to England, and I flew into Changi, but it was like 11 o'clock at night, and I only had like a 2 hour layover. So I got to see, I just got like a sneak peek. And I was like, okay, when I come back to Singapore, this is going to be like the day. I'm going to figure out what I got to do to get up in the airport and just spend the day in the airport. So that's going to be one of my 7 days right there, is just hanging out in Changi. And if one of my 7 days is hanging out at the hotel all day, Netflixing and chilling, I can do that. That's the other thing. As a nomad, I don't have to be outside every day. Like, I was outside all day today. I'm exhausted. Like, when I went to Mexico for 3 weeks, I was in Mexico, and for 5 days, I ain't leave the building. I was just, I was working and planning this upcoming travel, but I was also Netflixing and chilling, eating what was in my refrigerator. And yeah, so it's cool if it's only, a 4 day place. That's fine. I can sit in the hotel room and Netflix and shit. And I know I'm not using that properly, but it is what it is.
Perfect, perfect. Thank you so much thank you for not being like, oh, this crazy woman is in my DMs harassing me because she don't know how to read. I am so thankful that you came and you shared your experience. I know that somebody is going to be inspired. Somebody who's been kind of fence sitting, thinking like, oh, I can't do that. I think your experience proves that there is no one way to do this. That if there is something you want to do, y'all, because life is short, if there is something you want to do, there is a way to make it happen for you. So thank you for hanging out with us tonight. If y'all want to follow Vashana, she is the bougie nomad on Instagram, and I have that linked in the description. And if you are in the chat now, I just dropped it in the chat. Bougie, Boujee, nomad.
Well, thank you for having me. This is always for me. I love doing these, and you dropping in my DMs. It's like, I mean, I do that to people all the time. So I'm like, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. So yes, I'm like one of those people that's like I've never met a stranger. So yeah, I was happy to talk to you, and this was so fun, and I'm glad you had me on.
All right. All right. Everybody else, I will see y'all, I'm sure sometime later this